right, everyone. Welcome back to the show. So today's guest is Brad Ritter. He is one of the world's leading experts on performance. He is the author of the best-selling book, School of Grit, Unlock Your Potential Through Purposeful Adversity. Brad has held various positions in the medical device, education technology, and custom print industries. He's worked in big corporate America since 2004 and has been an early adopter of the work from home movement since 2005. Through grit, hard work, and determination, he's won lots of awards from Rookie of the Year to multiple Rep of the Year awards to President's Club. All of the awards, of course, came with a price. The price was trying to find work-life balance while constantly being on the road away from his family. He reached a pivotal point in life and he knew he needed to make a major pivot and take massive action. He decided to sign up for the Kokoro camp, which bills itself as the world's toughest civilian training and find his purpose. After graduating from the Kokoro camp in 2015, he wanted to find a way to serve others and help people get unstuck and take control of their lives. He accomplishes this through a proven system that focuses on your physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and warrior spirit. His mission is to build a warrior class community. That is why he created the School of Grit. Brad, thank you so much for joining us today. And I botched it a little bit, so I apologize in advance.
No, that was a mouthful. Thanks for having me on, Scott. Been looking forward to this, brother.
Absolutely. All right, so let's just get started. First off, foremost, everyone's going to see you moving around a little bit. You are currently walking, getting the exercise in. So I love that while you're doing that. So people notice that's what that is. So I love that. I should probably get one of those. Is it like a small little, like, it's not a treadmill, is it? Or is it?
It's actually a treadmill. Yeah. So it was like my COVID present to myself. I've been using a stand-up desk for a while, many years, but then I started even getting a little bit bored with that, just trying to shift my weight and messing around with different devices. And then I was talking to someone, Richard Thompson, if he's listening to this, he's the reason I bought one of these. And he was walking on a treadmill. I thought, man, I like that idea. So it just fits right underneath the desk and doesn't have the top to it, so to speak. But I love it, and big fan of habit stacking, which I'm sure we'll get into later at some point. But it's amazing how much extra mileage you get just walking and talking, you know?
Yeah, it's amazing. The only thing I love that, except like I'm on meetings where I have to like be typing and I feel like I get dizzy or I can't like type properly when I'm on there. That's the only thing. Otherwise, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like just because you're active.
Yeah, it takes an adjustment for that, and then you'll find kind of what your speed is. So I'm going at a nice leisurely 1 mile an hour. I could type doing this. I do it all the time. I can do email. Sometimes if I know I'm just talking, I'll crank it up to 1.5, 2 miles an hour, which does not sound fast, to the listeners out there, because it's not really if you're outside, but it is on a treadmill underneath the desk, so you don't need much. Just keep moving.
I love that. I love it. I think it's great. All right, well, let's just kind of hammer it away. So I guess I want to give the audience a little bit of background on you, obviously besides the bio, but tell us about kind of how your journey and kind of how you created the School of Grit.
Yeah, so I mean, high level, School of Grit was founded from a crucible style immersive experience that I went through. So I'm 43 and I was in my early 30s at the time, just kind of struggling with, what my purpose is, what am I here to do? All those big questions that sometimes haunt you. And traditionally I didn't focus, I'd listen, but didn't take any action on it. And then one day, I mean, it wasn't a nothing specific happened, I guess you'd say. It was a day like any other day, but I call it like my man in the mirror moment. And I can remember it. I was in the master bath, getting ready, shaving. Kids were away to school. Wife was out working, and had those questions pop up. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do something about it this time. And it was nothing major, but I decided to call in. I call in to work that day. I thought, it's not, I'm going to take a mental day. Before mental days were kind of like popular now. Yeah. So it's that thing. Yeah, I took my own mental day and spent a bunch of time doing some research online and didn't get anywhere. I typed in purpose and there was like 47 million hits, and reading all these blogs and just like, okay, I'm not anywhere closer to this thing. And I thought, well, cool, I'll go on video because I love video as a medium. Use YouTube all the time to learn how to do things. And typed the same thing in there, and I saw a TED Talk that changed my life. A lot of people have seen TED Talks, but I always like to ask people, have you ever seen a TED Talk that actually changed your life? Well, I have. And this particular one was delivered by a lady named Angela Duckworth. She wrote a book called Grit, which she calls her definition of grit is the power of passion and perseverance to achieve long-term goals. And in her research, and she has done interviews and studies with, West Point candidates, salespeople in very, tough environments, inner city teachers, like what's going to keep those people around, what's going to make them successful and not give up. And it was grit. Grit was the leading indicator for it, and it can absolutely be grown. And man, that's what really just started me off on this, personal development program. That now I get to take that and teach others. So that's sort of the origin stories there, if you will.
I love that. And so what did she say grit was again? It was perseverance and passion.
Yeah,
Passion and perseverance.
Angela says it's the power of passion and perseverance to achieve a long-term goal.
Is that also your definition of grit, or have you changed it to kind of match what you would do?
Yeah, great question. Mine's actually changed a little bit.
Okay.
I do believe in that, but mine's a little bit longer and it's got 4 parts, so bear with me. But there's a reason for it. So I said my definition. This is my definition of grit, which is I've thought about this for years. And this is the cool thing. Grit means something different to everybody else. So if I ask you what your definition is and someone else, you're going to have 2 completely different responses, which makes it so cool because it's not like you can't look at someone and say, hey, yeah, they got it or they don't.
Yeah.
They have to prove it. They prove it, through action. So my definition is grit's uncommon perseverance in the face of adversity, backed by a strong why to achieve a worthy goal. So there's 4 parts there. Uncommon perseverance, which is effort to me, like uncommon effort, essentially. In the face of adversity, well, there's got to be something going on, something sort of some roadblock, because that's when it's gonna pop up. Because when things are going smooth, like no big deal, right? It's easy. Anybody can do it. It's sunny out, 72, cool. I can go for a run. Yeah, no problem. When it's winter and it's 19 degrees and it's super windy, no, I don't want to go. But that's when you need to go. So that's what I'm talking about. Adversity. Backed by a strong why is just like it says, like why are you doing anything you're doing, this podcast, writing a book, coaching, the job you have, whatever. Why are you doing it? Ask yourself why 3 to 5 times. You'll get to the root of the real reason. And then to achieve a worthy goal. So long-term goals. I'm a big fan of goals. I don't like having too many, but I do believe in having, something you're shooting towards, and you got to make sure that it fits. Is it the right timing? Is it important enough? Can you be specific? There's lots of things that go into goals. So.
Wow, that's a lot, but it's amazing. And it covers a lot of ground where it's like, no, you can't really get away with anything. It's very specific too. I love that. So why is grit important? Okay. And I guess that'd be the first thing. Why is having grit important? A lot of people listening right now are probably already on the page of, they don't, I think the world has changed where it's like, instead of I'm not sure if you know Jocko Willink or like a David Goggins kind of a story, but like where they're just like, put your head down, go push forward. And I think a lot of people have shifted away from that, and not necessarily good or bad, to like, well, it's not just about pushing forward. There are things you can't overcome necessarily, which I'm not sure I agree with that, but I think both arguments have validity to it. So people are hearing us right now and they're like, oh, this is just one of those rah, just do it. Life's hard, figure it out. And if you just work hard enough, you'll achieve results. So I guess, how do you disperse that kind of thought pattern of like people almost ignoring that because they see the word grit, and grit's a very powerful word to use, and people kind of think of that just negatively. So sometimes, not all the time, but I guess for those people that think of it, how do you kind of dispel that mentality behind it?
I mean, think about the last thing you quit or gave up on would be the first place I'd start. And that's, so think truly, like why did you give up? And was it a matter of grit, or maybe it was good you did? Because that kind of leads to something else I talk about too. Like quitting's not a bad thing. I've quit lots of stuff in my life for a good reason. I've quit shitty relationships. I've quit bad jobs. I've quit majors in school. Okay, this no longer serves me. I move, so that's not actually a bad thing. But Giving up's a little bit different. Giving up to me is more purpose driven. And I think there's like maybe a handful of things in your life that kind of fit that bill. Like for me, I'm a family guy. Just am. That's what drives me. So, would I ever give up on my kids, my wife, my parent? No, not for me. I had probably a little bit different, maybe upbringing than some of our listeners, but that's one of them for me. Like non-negotiable, not quitting, not giving up, I should say.
What would you say? So, like for example, and I'm a big like David Goggins fan. For those of you who don't know David Goggins, he's the ultra marathoner. He was like an Army Ranger, Marine. Like he just is just the absolute utter pinnacle of the mentality of like just do it, just literally do it, push through the wall, and you'll get there. What would you say to that? Well, first off, what's your thought on that mentality of like, if something's not working, just keep going versus necessarily adapting to it and trying to find a different way around it. I think that's where most people get stuck is they hear these, motivational speakers and stuff. And they're like, oh my gosh, like it's not so easy. Just push through. What do you do? Like, what's your mentality on, okay, like I can't push through. What do I do next? How do I maneuver around this? So is there maneuverability in grit, or is it more of the push through and just keep going until it works?
I think it's like a dance. I think there's a lot of maneuverability, and it's going to be different. The thing is, for the listeners out there, it's not the same. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own life. Everybody's at a different plateau, has different things, pressures, what have you. So I think that's really where your intuition has to be aligned, and that kind of voice in your head, like I had, that I described, that man in the mirror moment. Like, listen to that voice, because it's usually right. Now, if it's not right, there's some serious work we need to do until you can start trusting that internal voice. But more often than not, whether that you believe that internal voice is, the higher being, God, whatever, you need to listen to it. And then ask yourself, like, okay, I'm listening, but am I doing anything? Because action trumps everything at the end of the day. I've got a ton of books right here you can see that I've read. Have I actually implemented any of that stuff? Maybe 2% of it. You know what I mean? So I think that's where we really need to look at. And hey, I love Goggins too. Like I'm an avid I've listened to his audiobooks and stuff. So I love that mentality. And same thing with Jocko. And I think what they would both agree on, which I 100% agree, is don't wait to be motivated. Because you're not going to be.
Motivation is
more often than not, you're not going to be motivated to do anything because it's hard. It's hard work, right? Yeah. Our bodies are wired to keep us safe and keep us comfortable. So it's like, I want you to lean into the discomfort. I want you to invite what I call purposeful adversity into your life. It's going to harden your mind. It's going to make you better. It's going to give you a good story to tell.
Yeah. It's almost like you want. It's almost like everyone's like, I don't feel motivated. It's like, good. That's when you should do it. It's like, if you're motivated, don't worry about it. It's when you don't feel motivated, that's the trigger point to where you should take action. And then it's so counterintuitive, but I think that's kind of what I learned from them as well. It's like, you can't be motivated at all because it's not, you can be, but you can't rely on it. You can't rely on being motivated because it's like like an ex-girlfriend. It's fleeting. It's fleeting. It doesn't stay very long.
It's fleeting. Yeah, it doesn't stay very long. And then it's like, how do you, I get it. I mean, that seems to be, I wish I had the magic elixir or the pill that would, get people up off the couch, let's say, and go doing whatever. No, I don't.
I thought that's why I brought you on. You told me magic pills.
Magic pills. I got them. I got some snake oil I can sell you too, right?
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, but it's it's one of those things. It's really got to come from you. You have to do the work. Right? I mean, at the end of the day. Now, there are things there are like accountability partners you can have, whether that's boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, friend, whatever. I mean, I'm a big fan of having, a workout partner or having someone a mentor, because we're not meant to do life alone. So, I mean, that's the other piece of it is, find yourself a tribe, find yourself a group of like-minded people that are going to hold each other accountable. That really seems to be successful. And at the end of the day, if you're having trouble with that, buy a dog or something like that. That's just going to get your ass up, and they need to be walked. So, get yourself a pet, something.
So that's an interesting point you bring up. So I want to kind of explore that a little bit because I do have a few other things I want to go into. But so you said we're not meant to be alone, right? We're meant to have support and build that. Okay, so great question. you said get a pet, whatever it is, but how important is that support? Because, a lot of people, let's say you're single and you're living by yourself and your family's far away and you move to a new area, you don't have a lot of friends. Yeah, very specific scenario, but the idea is like, there's a lot of people alone out there. And how do you build the internal support system versus externally? So, I mean, how important is the internal support system versus the external support system? I know you like the external. What about the internal? Because I can have a dog, I can have friends, family, but at the end of the day, if I'm not pushing myself, I don't know if I'm going to get anywhere. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's where it needs to be the strongest, because you could have a great support staff, friends, pets, whatever, but at the end of the day, if internally you don't have the skills, the tactics, the experience, let's say, well, then you've got some training to do. And hey, we all do. Like, the training's never done. But that's why I think, whatever you want to call it, self-help, self-development, I think that's why it's become very big in the past few years. At least I've seen it really blowing up inside the world of podcasts and books and mastermind groups, coaching. That's the cool thing about technology, because that is a big deal. A lot of people have moved away for a job. There are a lot of people on their own. Maybe they don't have family close by. Maybe they don't have friends. That's where it becomes, in my opinion, what you need to do is you need to learn to be comfortable being authentic and being a little bit vulnerable. It's a little scary. It's a little scary to go into this internet group of people that I don't know and like spill my guts, right? But I have had the experience. I joined a dad's group, many years ago, about 6 years ago, and it was awesome. We would have calls every Friday, and it was just all about being a good dad. And we would share stories, we would talk. But what kept me coming was the community, man. Yeah, the content was good, but the people I met, you learned to have this network of people that you could tap into. But then, kind of back to your question, it's good to have that, but internally you have to have a good foundation, man. You do.
Yeah.
And there's ways to build that, for sure. There's lots of different ways to build that. I mean, get yourself a coach if you need some help. There is I mean, if you think about it, you've had coaches all your life, whether it was your parents, teachers,
Yeah.
sports, financial. Why not have one to help you, build a good, solid weekly routine that you can check in with, that's going to help you, lift yourself up and build yourself up for that internal stuff. Yeah.
I love it. So
I have a
using
coach.
external,
Yep.
I love that. No, it's sort of why. So it's amazing to kind of see that. I love what you're talking about, because I agree completely. Using external to develop internal is another way. And I don't talk about that a lot on the show. I don't talk about using external to develop internals. That's something that, is a different perspective than what I normally talk about. I'm usually all about build your internal to then feel your action. But the reverse can be true, is to, to get action, you might need external to then feel your internal. So I love that perspective on it, because it gets you the same results at the end of the day, based on who you are, based on your experiences, based on whatever it is that you have to do. So going from there, I know you talked about, there's a couple different pillars you have going on in the School of Grit. So the big four of mental toughness, I want to kind of dive into. I feel like this is kind of a really interesting thing. People are always, whether it's stress, whether it's anxiety, whether it's frustration at work, whether it's time, money, whatever, people are, I saw this question the other day on Facebook of what's the toughest part of your journey? And people are talking about fitness, they're talking about nutrition, they're talking about time. And I'm like, guys, everything you just mentioned is all about your mind. It's all about your mindset. It's all about understanding your perspective and self-awareness, which is mental toughness, and learning how to build that. So I want to kind of hear what are your big four of mental toughness? So we'll dive into that.
Yeah. So this is something that I learned. I learned from Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL. His name is Mark Devine. And you hit something earlier when you were saying my bio, Kokoro Camp, which for your listeners, when I was at that the mirror moment and I was looking to kind of grow my grit, I chose an immersive Crucible style event to do that, because I wanted something that was going to break me physically, mentally, emotionally.
How long is that
and
camp, by the
transform
way?
me. It's 50 hours straight. Yeah.
50, oh my God.
Yeah,
What?
it's based on Navy SEAL training.
Do you get to eat?
Buds. They do feed you. Yeah, minimally, but they do feed you.
Do you sleep
But
at all or
no
no?
sleep, no
Get
sleep,
out of here. 50
no
hours?
50 hours,
Oh,
constant physical movement. Yeah, you could. I mean, we can get into that too, but yeah, it's
what?
hallucinating and all that good stuff.
Hell yeah. Oh,
But
yeah, no.
why I brought that up real quick was that's Mark Devine's baby, who's one of my mentors, and then he has a sister company called Unbeatable Mind, which sort of teaches that internal piece that you were alluding to, Scott,
Mhm.
and you could become a licensed, certified Unbeatable Mind coach. And I thought, this is it. This is what I want. So I did it. I accomplished that during COVID. It was a year long. And why I'm mentioning that is because this is where I derive the big four of mental toughness from. This is where I learned it, and I always like to give credit to who taught me.
Yeah.
So yeah, the big four of mental toughness is breath control, positivity, visualization, and proper goal setting, basically. And we can break each one of those down if you want, but it all starts with your breath. So you were talking about people stressed or they're in pressure situations and all that. Check your breath is usually what I tell people to do. Where's your breath at? Are you even breathing? Are you holding it? I bet you're holding it. If you're next time you're in a very stressful, heated conversation or something like that with a boss or, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, check your breath. I bet you're holding it. Allow your time to actually breathe. And what's that going to do? That's going to calm the senses, and it's going to give you a second or two to formulate a good response instead of a reaction. Because I'm no different than anyone else. I have kids. I have knee-jerk reactions when they spill crap on the floor or whatever. But more often than not, if I see it and I give myself time to breathe, I'm gonna respond versus react, because there is a difference there.
So when it comes to breathing, I think this is of the four, this was the most surprising for me. I think the other three, I was like, kind of, because this is my first time hearing it as well as everyone else. So I think the first one was I was like, what, breathe control? I was like, really? Okay. So, and I understand, I grew to understand the importance of breath work and meditation and all of that and visualization, like you talked about. But breathing has always been a very difficult thing for me personally, because I find it very tedious in the terms of not normal breathing, but like in terms of calming myself down or trying to, zone, whatever it might be. When you follow these meditations or yogas, it's okay, breathe deeply for 7 seconds, then hold for 5, then breathe out, and then do these little things. So is that what you're talking about, is kind of doing these almost meditative mudra level, that's probably the wrong term, style breathings, or is it mostly just be aware of your breath? I guess, is there a differential there?
Yeah, I actually recommend everybody carry around a drum that they can beat, and then they can do this nice little seven set. Now I'm kidding, of course. No, it's a great distinction. So, yeah, you hit it on the nail on the head. Awareness. Just be aware. I'm not saying you need to go into some, deep meditate. You won't be able to in these situations. That's the other
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, you might want to do that, but you can't in the moment. Think of, I've been in sales all my life. So just think, if you're presenting in front of a bunch of people and you're starting to get stressed or asking questions, you can't just, put yourself in the corner and take a quick time out. Like, hey, give me 20 seconds. I do
Hold
some
on.
deep breathing,
Let
right?
me, let me.
But what you can do is just take a simple breath, and ideally through your nose, because we do have a nose for a reason. It's there. A lot of us are mouth breathers. I myself am. And in fact, when you're speaking, you usually are a mouth breather, interesting enough. But yeah, just be aware of it. That's all I'm saying. Be aware. And
And
then there are lots of practices and all that. And hey, I'll raise my hand. I tried them years ago, and I was like, this just, I don't get it. Like, nothing's happening and all that. And then I revisited it a couple years ago, and just, I found my jam. You just gotta, it's like anything else. You gotta find what works for you. And now it's a part of my morning. Every morning, when I do my morning routine, I have about a 10-minute breath practice. It's super simple. Heck, I can
wow.
teach it to you right now, but it works for me.
Yeah. And by
Yeah,
the
it's
way,
called.
we're not making fun of meditation or yoga. I wasn't making fun of that. I'm just saying, like, there is a massive difference between
for,
meditative breathing and
for
almost
sure.
relaxing breathing. But yeah, tell
Yeah.
me what your what your 10-minute routine. 10 minutes seems like a long time to me. I mean, I do
Yeah.
about a 5-minute one
Yep.
with a all-encompassing meditation after the fact. So yeah, I want to, what's yours?
Yeah, and it's grown over time, because I'm a big fan of crawl, walk, run. So when I started off, it was 2 minutes, It was the best I could do just to get my monkey mind not to go crazy and start thinking about a million different things. And it still happens. I mean, that's just human being. But I'm a big fan of what's called box breathing. It's a very simple process. I
Box
usually
breathing.
tell people to start off with like a 4-second iteration. And what I mean by that is if you think of a square, so the top of the square, you're going to
Yeah.
hold your breath, and this is all done nasally. So don't do it out your mouth unless you have to for some reason. So do this all through your nose. So you're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. You're going to hold your breath for 4 seconds, and then you're going to breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold your breath for 4 seconds. And you just repeat that pattern like a box for however long you want to go, whether it's 10 minutes, 10 rounds, 2 rounds, whatever.
When you do the breathing out, do you do it through your nose still, or
Through
do
your
you do it through your
nose.
mouth?
Yeah, all through your
Interesting.
nose.
Okay.
Yep, all through your nose. Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, that's referred to as box breathing. There is tactical breathing, which they teach, and I believe now it's a vital part of. I don't know about vital. I don't know if that's the right word, but they do teach it in like special forces training and like tier 1 stuff. I've been told, I haven't served in the military, but if you could imagine, being on a real battlefield or wherever, and there's a battle, there's a real gunfight, I'm sure you're going to be freaking out a little bit, right? That's where breath becomes super important, because as they say, if you can control your physiology, you can control your psychology. So if I can control my breath and what's happening in my body, I can control the thoughts in my mind and be thinking about what I need to do in this high stress pressured situation. And the foundation for that is breathing. They call it tactical breathing, which is very simple. A lot of us probably do it now and we don't even realize we're doing it, but it's say it's a 4-second inhale through your nose, 4-second out through your mouth. That type of thing. So if you think of like a strenuous workout, you're doing a watt at the CrossFit box or whatever, and you're really pushing yourself, check your breath. Sometimes it just might take 2 or 3 breaths to get you right back in the fight. You know what I mean?
Is there any sort of, and mostly for the box one, but I kind of like, I'm going to call the other one diagonal because it's literally cuts your method and the method in half. Is there any neurological, I'm not sure if this is your area of expertise or not, but like, because I hear all the time, like if you do certain things, it activates certain parts of your body when you breathe a certain way, and that's the reason why it's 7 seconds or 10, whatever it might be. Is there anything specific about the box breathing, the 4, 4, 4, and 4, that activates anything in your body specifically?
Yeah, I know it activates the nervous system in certain ways, but I'm not scientific enough to be able to have that type of that level of conversation. But the answer is yes. And if you want to learn more, I'm sure it's out there somewhere, man. I don't want to butcher it, but yeah, 100%. And I don't know if they've got certain. It actually that'd be really cool to see, is like a study if like a certain number of seconds, let's say, or a certain number of rounds achieves a certain purpose. I just know, everyone's a little bit different. So for me, it usually takes a good 5 rounds to where I'm like, okay, I'm starting to center myself. I'm not thinking about all this other stuff in my head of my to-do list and everything I got to get done today. Like I'm here, I'm thinking about me, you know?
I feel like it'd be good right before bed too, to calm your minds.
It's
Before,
great
oh my
before bed,
gosh, I'm
dude.
gonna try it
Oh,
tonight.
it's unbelievable.
I'm doing it tonight.
I'm telling you,
100%.
people ask me, they're like, hey, what's something I can do to start, building grit right away? That's one of them. I always say is just be aware of your breath, check in with it. And there's like very simple breath practices you can employ right now. If you do that one in the morning and do it right before bed, it's a game changer, man. I'm serious. It'll change your life.
All right, I'm in. I'm gonna at least start right before bed. I'll do a couple rounds
Box
before
breathing.
box breathing, couple rounds. There, you hear. I want her to hear first. I'm doing it. I'm in it. I'm all about it because I used to hate this stuff, and now I've kind of grown to really really enjoy it, and so I'm really trying to make that a part of my normal routine. So last question on the breathing part, as being the kind of the number one of the mental toughness is, so let's say you're in, obviously the box breathing is great and everything. Would you recommend that specifically for when you're in a situation, or what type of breathing do you recommend when it's okay, you're mad at your boss, you're mad at work, you're mad at your kids? Like, is there a specific one for that? Like, what kind of breathing pattern for that? Like any stressful situation?
For me, it's tactical breathing.
Okay, so 4 4
is that diagonal one that I was talking about, where it's just like in through your nose, out through your mouth.
Yeah.
Because 2, it's like if you're super jacked up, like if you've been working out, it's gonna be hard to completely breathe out of your nose unless you've had training. So it's normal to be a complete, mouth breather. But yeah, just do that simple one, in and out, in and out. a couple
All right.
times, and yeah.
So next time I'm mad at someone, breathe in through my nose 4 seconds, breathe out through my mouth 4 seconds, and do that
Yeah.
as long as I can while in the situation.
As long as you
Okay,
can. And heck, maybe
yeah,
it might be 2 seconds, depending
yeah.
on how long it
But
is. And that's
that's
okay
the
though. That gives
yeah.
you enough time to give your mind to think about how you want to respond versus just having that knee-jerk reaction.
I
It's
love it.
very simple stuff, but man, when you really start peeling back the onion, it's like, yeah, why wouldn't I do that? And
Hmm.
everybody breathes, but are you doing it right? Or are you even aware of it?
I
They
love that.
say
It's
they
great.
say that's another simple exercise you can do is you could time yourself how many breath cycles you do in a minute. Because ideally, the studies show, I think it's something like you should be around, I think 7 is about right. But most people are like double digits. Now, if you go to do it right now and you're listening to this, you're going to be really focused on it. You're going to purposely slow yourself down. But most people, when they're breathing autonomous, they're not thinking about it. They're going through a lot of cycles,
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah.
A lot of it probably
And I'm
has
no
to
different.
do. No, no. I raised my hand. I just thought about it. I was like, I probably am like probably closer to like 12 or
Mm-hmm.
13. If I had to really like now when I'm
Yep.
like working in my zone, yeah, I'm probably way less. But I think normally I'm pretty much like, yeah, I'm a lot more. I I lost the train of thought there. Where was I going with it? It was great, phenomenal. But we'll go back to it, I guess.
And then
Uh,
I do know this, like now that I'm
yeah.
thinking about it, like there, for me, now again, I'm not recommending this because I'm not a doctor. So I've historically had high blood pressure.
Hmm.
Breath practice has lowered my blood pressure slightly. I've seen it because I measure it all the time, and I'm like, okay, what changes am I making? Well, I haven't really changed anything with diet, so it's like I bet it's this breath thing that helps because it should lower your pulse a little
It should
bit
lower
too.
your
Yeah.
cortisol level. It should
Yep.
lower again. Cortisol is your stress hormone. So if you find yourself very stressed, I do recommend breathing practices generally because that can lower the cortisol levels, which then could potentially lead to other health benefits. I'm not a doctor, but blood pressure certainly could be one of those as well.
Yep.
So I mean, there's a ton of benefits to breathing properly, and I think a lot of the times, here's what we got. A lot of times, if you're breathing a lot, and in not that 7 ideal area, think about how you're breathing as well. I think that's another thing is we're very big
Mm-hmm.
chest breathers when we should be diaphragmatic breathers, which basically comes in almost down into your stomach, and that should be expanding first versus just your chest. I think a lot of people are just up here and they don't even know how to get their breath all the way down into their stomach
Yep.
diaphragm, which is really what you should be doing the breathing. If you're just doing chest, you actually might just get out of breath. You actually might not feel good. So it's something to think about is when you're doing it, it's called diaphragmatic breathing when you're going through it. Because I think it'd be a lot of people just don't understand that process or what that is.
Yeah, the diaphragm is definitely underutilized. I know it is within me too until I came across this diaphragmatic breathing, but I still have to consciously make myself do it. It's not
Yeah.
something that I just do at a subconscious level for sure.
Yeah. And I'm not an expert on it by any means, everyone, but basically when
Yeah.
you're breathing in, it's think of there a balloon in your stomach. And as you breathe in, that balloon's expanding in your stomach first. So out with your stomach and then up with your chest versus just up with your chest. So when
Mm-hmm.
you breathe in, your chest comes up, but really it should be when you breathe in, your stomach expands and
Yep.
then your chest comes up. There's some nuance to it, but that's a very inherent way to think about it. So maybe if you don't know what I'm talking about, whatever, YouTube it or DM us and
Yeah,
we'll
you'll
talk you
find a
through
bunch
it.
of stuff on there. Yeah, because you'll want to go out and you'll find that your ribs will expand outward
Yes,
too with the
yes.
diaphragm, which is cool. And I like to also recommend James Nestor wrote a book called
Sure.
Breath. That's awesome. I mean, he goes super. I mean, think about it, a book completely on breathing.
Oh my
So
gosh,
if
yeah.
you want to go geek out and get into the weeds, man, I suggest that book. It is super cool. And I mean, to the point that there's been studies on skulls, human being skulls, and how our skulls have changed over time due
That's
to the way
crazy.
we breathe. Yeah,
That's
it's
crazy.
it's gonna
What?
it's gonna blow your mind, man.
Okay.
So
I'm
check it
I'm
out.
gonna get it. I just wrote it down.
Yep,
James Nestor breath. I'm in. I'm in for it. I'm all in.
there you go. And he's got breath
Um,
practices at the end of the book that you can, which
love
is
it.
super cool too.
Excellent. Awesome. All right, number 2. Positivity.
Positivity. So we all know what positivity is, but to me, when you look at all 4 of the big 4, this could be the most important. Obviously, breathing is important. I mean, you have to breathe. But positivity, think about it. Think about it, man. Any team you've ever been on, all it takes is one piece of negativity to come up. And if people start feeding off that, it can quickly spread and ruin the entire, environment, the entire, feeling. So just be positive, man, no matter what life is throwing your way. And we've all been handed shit sandwiches, so to speak. And just remember, someone's always got it harder, always. So I try to remember that whenever I'm going through a rough patch, because we all go through them. We know that about life. It's not a matter of if, but when. Life's going to kind of slap you in the face. And that's why this training is important, is you'll have something to fall back on when it does. But just stay positive. You're always going to learn something. You might not learn it. You might not know the lesson right away, but eventually it will reveal itself. It's happened time and time again just throughout my own life. So stay positive. If your boss at work asks you to do this crazy project, I have enough time and you don't want to do it, try to stay positive about it. I know it's hard to do, but just do it.
Do you have any tricks or tips or hacks, that you can, like, what's one or two things someone could do to, like, if they're in a negative mindset, to be positive about that area, that whatever they're facing?
Yeah. There's something that I go to. I call it the worm, WIRM. So
The worm.
think about a circle, a loop. All right. So if we're in this negativity loop or this fear loop, a lot of the times we find ourselves in, the first part of that's the W is witness. So kind of like what you're talking about with awareness, with breath, is just witness what's going on. Have you ever been like in a heated conversation and like halfway through it, you kind of take yourself out of your body and you're like, what are we even freaking fighting over?
Doing?
This is so stupid. That's your witness. That's it right there. And what's funny is, if you start to employ more breath and meditation practices, you'll be able to activate your witness a lot faster, which is a pretty cool side effect. I also equate it to, if you've been on an airplane and it's, super crappy weather, it's gray, it's raining on the tarmac, and you take off and you get up above the clouds and it's like perfect, it's nice and peaceful, sunny. That's kind of like the witness to me. So you're kind of taking yourself out of that situation, so to speak, and being aware. So that's the first piece. Witness what's going on. Then I want you to interdict it. All right. And what I mean by interdict it is say stop. No, not right now. That's that internal voice. I guess you could say it out loud too, but you might be looked at kind of weird if you're in a meeting and all of a sudden Scott's like, no. Stop it.
What?
Yeah, exactly. So
your boss just told you you're all getting raises. No.
Yeah, so that internally, just interdict it. That's all it takes. That's just a simple little power statement, right? Stop. No, I got this, whatever. That's different for everybody. And then I want you to redirect that into something positive. That's the hardest part. Like when you're in that negative place is like, okay, how do I redirect this? And that, for me, where I go is I always think about, people from my life, either family members, friends, people I've seen on maybe a motivational speech, people that have it a lot worse than me. And I'm always like, all right, it could always be worse, man. Like this, we'll get through it. Like, what am I getting so mad about? And then, M is maintain. So you maintain that positive energy, that positive visualization with like a jingle or something, or a mantra. So I've got a lot of go-tos, man. I have like, feeling good, looking good, ought to be in Hollywood. I've got different poems I've memorized, like I love Invictus. So I've got different things I will say to myself over and over again to keep that going. So worm, witness, interdict, redirect, maintain. And because it's a loop. And if you don't break the loop, you're just going to keep going around and around and around in that negativity hole over and over and over again.
Do you ever discuss why why the negativity loop is so powerful, and how but the fact that you have to create, right, this the acronym, the service behind it means that negativity is so powerful among us right now. I'm not sure if it's always been that way, but that's, the last couple 100 years, it's always been that way. Why is negativity so powerful? Why is that our first go-to? Why do we get so stressed, so annoyed, so frustrated so quickly? And then we need to create these breathing positivity loops that get us out of it. Is there anything? I have my thoughts on it, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I don't have an immediate thought, so I'd love to hear yours because I'm sure that's going to open up something for me. Because that's a great question. I've never been asked that before. It's solid. So that'll give me some time to think. So let's hear yours,
Okay.
man.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. So my thought on it is the body is, like you said earlier, is, it's always fighting against you. It doesn't like change. It likes to be comfort. It likes to be comfortable.
Homeostasis. Yep.
Homeostasis. It will fight you. That's why losing weight so difficult. That's why doing all these different things difficult. So the second you're doing something that you interpret as a change, difficult or hard, the body sends hormones to basically go, that's different. I don't like that. We don't know what that change is going to do. We're surviving right now. So we're going to stop you from doing that. That's why, for example, when you get home from a long day at work and you're exhausted, you can go to the gym, or you can sit on the couch. Your body is going to be like, let's sit on the couch. We don't need to do anything. We're feeling good. You had a hard day. It'll tell you all these different things, make you feel like it makes sense. And then you'll rationalize reasons why you don't have to, have grit and do your goal and achieve things. So I think your body tries to keep you where you are because of a survival mechanism for the most part. That's why negativity creates almost carefulness, right? Because if you're too positive, I guess potentially, you could go out there and hurt yourself or change things. And we don't like change. The body likes routine. The body likes pattern. Again, not true for everyone. That's just my kind of theory on it based on a handful of conversations I've had with people in the field. But I'm not sure if that aligns with what you teach.
Yeah, I could see that, man. That completely aligns. I think a lot of it too can just be our backgrounds.
Yeah.
How we were brought up. I mean, let's face it. Going back to those loops, generally speaking, this isn't the case for everybody, but how your grandparents raised your parents,
yeah,
and how your parents raised you could be how you end up raising your kids, unless you interdict it somewhere, whether that was a positive experience or a negative experience. So, if that's something you're used to seeing, you're kind of, I don't want to say you're born that way, but you grew up with it. You grew up around it. You might not know anything other than, loud arguments and cussing at the dinner table.
Oof, that's so powerful.
Whereas someone else, like, what are you guys? We didn't grow up this way. We had it completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's where that piece could come up to play, and it's likely both. I mean, I don't think there is one solid answer that would accompany everything. But no, that was a great question, because you got me really thinking about it. But yeah, I think a lot of times it's our backgrounds,
upbringing, nature versus nurture. It's the age-old question.
Nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
If you've experienced any trauma growing up, then you're to your point, you're gonna have that in the back of your mind, and your body wants to keep you safe, right? So it's gonna be negative. And then I don't know, maybe some people are just assholes by inherent nature, but hey, that's okay too, right? But be aware. Just say, I have a natural tendency to be a real asshole. So I need to like call time out on myself quickly.
That might be me.
Before I say something I'm gonna regret.
I feel attacked right now.
Oh, good.
No, I mean, if you think about it, and then actually it makes so much sense now, just from a very macro perspective. If you really look at it, okay, if you had let's say you asked someone out, okay, let's say you went to a bar, you asked someone out, because that's what people used to do, and they said no, and that rejection hurts, and now you've developed this whole new, okay, well, now I'm not going to do this, I'm going to stay in my shell, and your experience is 100% shape, how you. I think there's 100% both. Nature versus nurture. I think it's a combination of many different nuanced things that we possibly can't, even, some of it we can't comprehend at the moment. But I love that so much. I think you hit it dead on with the nurturing aspect of how you grew up, how you were trained, how you were raised, and the experiences you have will shape who you are. And I think a lot of that is very true. So I love that answer.
Thanks. And no matter how you were brought up, like, I guess in some situations it could be viewed as wrong, but it just it is what it is, But
don't let the situation control you.
Exactly. So you just said exactly what I was going to say. So awesome.
Yeah.
No. You nailed it, man. We're on the same wavelength there.
Yeah. So for people out there, it's look, don't. The idea is don't let the situation control you. Not everyone gets a fair shake, but that doesn't mean you can't succeed, right?
Yeah. Yep. And that what Jocko says, own it.
Yeah.
Like extreme ownership. That's what his book's all about. Is just owning it. Own the situation.
Well, what's the alternative, right? The alternative, you don't, and that's why I love the School of Grit, because you're owning your life, you're owning creating change. Versus what's the opposite? Okay, you're not owning it, which makes you a victim, which fair enough. Some of people who grew up in horrible situations, and by the way, there's someone always worse. There's someone always who has a worse situation.
There it
But
is.
there are many people out there. If you look at some of the most successful people on the planet over the course of history, they came from nothing and they built empires out of it. And so what that tells us is that you shouldn't be a victim of your situation. You should basically find a way to overcome it, which gives you kind of almost more stripes. But at the end of the day, it's like you can either be a victim or you can own it. And okay, you could be a victim and complain about it, or you could do something about it. And yeah, it's going to be harder than most people. It's going to be worse. It's not fair. It sucks. But that doesn't mean you can't succeed. It doesn't mean that you can't see results just like anyone else.
Yeah, it's and I think technology has helped a little bit with this in finding people who are like us. So I'll give you an example. We have this local magazine where I live, and I was reading this article and I was like, wow, talk about a group that you'd never want to belong to, but you're glad it exists. And it was a group for dads who had lost children.
Oof.
I mean, think about losing a kid. I mean, I have kids. I can't think of things that are much worse. But it was this group where they meet weekly. They go to a restaurant and they bond. They talk about it. And years ago, I don't know if that would have ever exist without technology and social media, and so that is one bright point of this. Yeah. So again, everybody has circumstances, but it's what you choose to do. These group of guys choose to meet with each other, be authentic, talk about it. And that's gone on to, I believe they now have some scholarships that have come from it.
Wow.
And instead of having the victim mentality and literally, hey, I'm not trying to money morning quarterback here. I couldn't imagine what I do in that situation. But you always have a choice. You always have a choice. And you can either do something positive with it, or you can do something really negative with it and let it pretty much ruin your life. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
And both choices are hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that leads us into visualization.
Oh yeah. This is probably my favorite one.
Favorite one. Not the most important, but the favorite. Okay.
Probably my favorite one. Yeah. So huge fan of visualization. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a saying that if you win first in your mind before setting foot on the battlefield. I think Sun Tzu said that in Art of War, or something along those lines. Okay. Well, I'm not a professional warrior, so I'm not going to a real battlefield. So how do you use that in everyday life? Everyday life, to me, is the battlefield. It's the battlefield of life. So how can you win in life if you can't see yourself being successful? So I would encourage your listeners to see yourself being successful. And that can be in anything, whether it's, delivering a best man speech at a wedding, to, delivering just a killer presentation in front of a bunch of clients, to asking out that girl at the bar, Scott, that we were talking, see yourself being successful. Because that's gonna give you some confidence. And if you do it enough, if that visualization's strong enough, and it's one of those that keeps happening, you've already won in your mind. And then it's like now it's just time to go. It's time to get it on, so to speak. And that was one of my secret ingredients for making it through that Navy SEAL style camp that I went to. Was as I was training long and hard for it, I saw myself going through different evolutions and being all beat up and tired and like I could almost smell the ocean, man. You know what I mean? I could almost feel the sand. That's what I'm talking about. Getting to that level of visualization. Super powerful. Michael Phelps, arguably greatest Olympian of all time, all those medals. Visualization, not a lot of people know, was a critical part of his training. He would do visualization training with his coach for at least an hour a day, a solid hour. Wow. He would see himself on every single stroke, eyes closed. He knew where he'd be to the nanosecond, where he should be. If you've ever seen, you ever heard of like the Blue Angels or some of those folks that fly? Yeah. So have you ever seen them do their pre-flight in the conference room? What do they do?
No, I haven't seen that. Yeah.
they're around the table, eyes closed, and they're just listening to the different commands. They're seeing where their hands are going to be on the joystick. They know precisely where they're going to be. Same thing with a surgeon. Surgeons do it too. A lot of them before surgery. When they're there, washing their hands, getting ready to rock and roll, mentally, man, it's showtime, right? They're going through, okay, first I'm going to see this, then I'm going to get to that. Why can't we do that? Just the normal, everyday people, right? You can. You absolutely can. Now it takes practice, just like breath practice. It's not easy at first. It's good. Probably take a while, but I encourage you to really give visualization a strong try. And again, it's one of those things that I employ every day as part of my morning routine. When I'm doing my my box breathing practice, let's say, this is a way you can habit stack that. I told you at the beginning, I'm a big fan of habit stacking. That's why I'm walking right now, getting some extra. Hey, I've already been a mile. So there you go, just like that. When I do the box breathing, add in a layer of visualization on top of it, because then it can become like a concentration practice where you're focusing on, okay, what's the most important thing I need to get done today? Boom, I'm going to see myself doing it. And it just sets you up, man. Sets you up to win the day.
And on top of the visuals, which I agree with 100%, I love the visualization. There's actually a couple studies out there that show that visualization might not be quite as effective as physically doing something, but there are significant benefits to doing it. For example, there was a study out there that shows people shooting free throws, and there were three groups: one without visualization, one with it, and one that just did it. And what it showed was the people that did it obviously increased their free throw percentages the most. But then, and the ones who didn't do it didn't increase anything. But the visualization, who just practiced they just visualized what they were going to do, almost just went through the motions. They saw a significant increase in percentage of shooting.
That's cool.
Without actually doing anything. And so what that tells us is that when you visualize something, your body can respond to it. And it's basically like you're rehearsing a situation that's going to be happening, and then you're used to it, and then you can get better at it later on. So if it's, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to do X, Y, or Z, if you visualize what you're doing over and over again, right, it suggests that you'll get better at it and you'll become familiar, and then it will become part of what you do without actually having to do something necessarily at the time, or at least you'll be more familiar with it. So I love visualization. I think it's one of the most powerful things that we can do, and not just visualize, but feel it as well. I think you mentioned that a little bit, is really feel, what is it going to feel like? So for example, we'll talk about weight loss because it's very easy to talk about, is if you're going to lose 20 pounds, you're going to visualize that. What are you going to look like? What's that going to feel like? How are you going to feel? What are you going to do once you achieve that goal? When you hit all those emotions, even tasting it, right? Like just everything, hearing it. What are people going to say? What are you going to say? It becomes this almost immersive mental experience that your body goes, okay, this is something that we want to do. And it gets you out of that negative loop. And so kind of circling back there. So visualization is extraordinarily powerful. That I think gets a lot of bad press, because I think it's like, oh, okay, if I envision this, I'll get it. But it's like, no, like for real, like a lot of people will visualize what they're going to do before concerts, before, going out, whatever it is, because then they are very familiar with the situation and their body is, and they're going to feel a lot more comfortable. So I love the visualization aspect of it.
Yeah. And I love it. And that's positive visualization. So there's the other side of it too, which I do enjoy doing as well. I want your listeners to be very careful with this, because it's a more advanced practice, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
But especially when we're doing goal planning, let's say, a lot of times we'll plan for things to go right. I mean, who doesn't? But I encourage you to also plan for contingencies. Because if you spend time visualizing and thinking about, okay, how can this plan go wrong? And you can solve for it ahead of time, it's going to alleviate a lot of anxiety. And you will have also know what the solution is to it, because you have already solved it ahead of time.
You've seen it ahead of time.
You've seen it ahead of time. So negative visualization is a very powerful thing. Be very careful with it. But I think that's a way you can definitely exemplify the whole depending on what the situation is. I am a huge fan of it with planning, whether it's financial planning, business planning, whatever. Business plan, like, okay, cool, you want to launch a business, right? You want to get a side hustle. Awesome. Who doesn't? Well, I know a lot of people that don't, but everybody thinks of like Okay, cool. We're gonna do this, this, and this. All right. Well, what happens when that doesn't work out? And let's solve ahead of time, because you could probably think of the top 3 ways it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't solve for it ahead of time. How are you going to mitigate it? How are you going to avoid it, or go around it? Yeah,
I love it. No, and it's a great point to just, it's almost just critical thinking. Just think through.
it is.
You know, it's not necessarily being negative. It could be just being realistic. It's like, hey, like, what are all the
Or
options?
just being realistic.
Yeah. It's hey, what are the options? What's the possibility? What happens if it does fail? Because it could. Why not? And so,
and yeah, and if I always say, try to come up with three ways it's going to fail. And if you can't think of one, well, we just had one a couple years ago. COVID. What if another pandemic hit? Like, go have a default. You know, what if this shuts down? Okay, cool. Now we got to try to figure out what we're going to do.
Okay, what if the zombie apocalypse breaks out? I mean,
Zombie apocalypse.
I know what I'm going to do. So it's no. And then the last one on the list here, goal setting. So I mean, I feel like most people are pretty familiar with goal setting. Is there anything specific that that makes this a little bit different than normal goal setting?
Yeah, I think it's fairly normal, and everybody has their own probably opinion and how detailed they go with goals. Just two things with goals that I can think of. Just remember, an 80% plan that gets executed is better than 100% perfect plan that never sees the light of day.
Ooh. Say that again. Say that again.
So an 80% plan that gets well executed is better than 100% perfect plan that never sees the light of day.
I love it.
And I was guilty of this too. There were so many of us that it's comfortable, right, to stay in planning. Oh, dude, I got this killer idea, Scott. I'm working on this. And I talked to you 6 months later. Cool, man. Where you at with it? Oh, I'm still playing. I'm talking to you. Yeah. Still playing. They never launch. Where people don't realize is you're gonna fail. You're gonna pivot, learn. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of it. Is once you have a good enough plan. Notice I didn't say perfect, but good enough. Launch. You're gonna make mistakes, but learn, pivot, so that your next iteration of it's like, boom, you've addressed that. And if you do that over and over again, you're going to find that secret recipe, that secret ingredient. It's like what Mike Tyson, I think it was, right? Said, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the nose.
Yeah.
Basically. And it's so true. So that's the first thing I would leave the listeners with is just, don't have that perfect plan. Have a good enough plan and then take action on it and learn, because failure is how we learn. Don't be afraid of failure. Now, don't keep
trying.
Exactly. And don't keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, right? Learn from it. It's the definition of insanity. And then the second piece is I want you to remember this acronym too, because it's a quick one for planning. I know there's books written on planning, strategic planning, all that. So, but this is just a simple one. I refer to as a FITS model. FIT. I'm hitting you with all these acronyms today,
yeah, you are.
Yeah. So FITS. So FITS, fit. F is actually fit. Does it fit my mission? Does it fit my purpose? Does it fit the overall, what I'm trying to do? Okay, does it line up, essentially? Yes or no? I is importance. How important is it that I get this done? Is this something that needs to be done right away? Or I can put this off for 6 months to a year type thing. T, and this is where most ideas will get put on the back burner. Timing.
Ooh,
is it good timing? Hey, I want to have a podcast, Scott, believe it or not. Guess what? I don't have one for a specific reason. I don't have the time right now. I don't. I know that sounds like a shitty excuse, but I'm using that time for other things. I know what it's going to take to do that. So it's on my radar for next year, not this year, but next year. So that's timing. You got to get good at saying no. We say yes too much to too much stuff. There's just not enough time. So you got to get used to saying no. It's probably going to piss some people off, but that's okay. Oh, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, fair enough.
And then S. So we got fits. Does it fit? Importance, time, and then S is specific. So you have a goal. You got to get specific with it. Can you take a bigger goal, put it into manageable chunks? Can you put it a time frame around it? Like you can get this piece done by next month and ultimately be done with it in a year. That type thing. So you need to get specific with it instead. So losing weight, Yeah, great. Let's get specific. So you want to lose 20 pounds. Let's go 1 pound for the next 20 weeks. Now that's getting specific.
Yeah.
That's more manageable instead of looking at that big, oh, am I going to lose 20 pounds? Okay, I can lose a pound this week. That's manageable. And then I can lose a pound that, and I'm sure at some point you're going to like plateau or whatever. We all do. But that's at least going to get you on that
track.
Yeah. Yep. So there you go.
Awesome. So we have breath control, positivity, visualization, and goal setting is the big four for mental toughness. I love that. We really dive deep into that. That was a lot of time there. One of the last questions I wanted to ask you, because we know we talked about this prior, is unlocking your potential through purposeful adversity. So you kind of mentioned this the very beginning of the show. So I kind of want to like circle back to it. Purposeful, because everyone has adversity, right? We all go through adversity. What do you mean by purposeful? And then how does that unlock your potential? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So purposeful means you're signing up for it. Basically, you're inviting it into your life instead of it just happening to you. Because like you said, adversity is going to happen. It's going to happen to all of us. Crisis does not discriminate based on race, gender, weight, any of that crap. How much money you make, it's all going to hit you. What Biggie say? Mo money, mo problems. I think. Yeah, right. Shout out Biggie there. So what I'm talking about is inviting purposeful adversity. So this is stuff that kind of scares you. That internal voice. You're like, oh man, I don't know if I should do that, but it's good for you too. Like it's not gonna quote unquote hurt you. You're not purposely putting yourself into too much of harm's way. And I mean that's different for everybody. So obviously I'm a huge proponent of physical fitness. So purposeful adversity for me is trying to work out every day, getting my sweat on, right? Like I'm not motivated to do it, but I got the discipline built to do it. And it's adversity. There's times I want to quit, absolutely, but that's where I want to be, man. I want to get to that point where I want to quit, because that's where the most growth happens. Because if you get there over and over and over again, and you know how to silence that voice, it's game on, man. Because that transfers over into other areas of your life, work, family, sports. I mean, you name it. So purposeful adversity, yeah, could be. I'm just a big fan of like learning things, like learning how to do stuff. So picking up a guitar, learn how to play guitar, extremely difficult. Extremely. So go do it. And then put a plan in place to do it, martial arts.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like I do Taekwondo with my kids, have for the last 3 years. Amazing experience. Very adverse, especially for a 43-year-old guy who's not too flexible to try and kick above my waist.
Oh my gosh.
Repeatedly. Yeah. But purposeful. So and I've seen the effects of that. I've become more flexible. So that's what I'm talking about. Because we were hitting on this earlier in the call. We live in the most comfortable generation ever. I mean, we just do. Now, there's good things that come out of that, but there's also bad things that I see. And that is, I think we've just kind of lost the joy of hard work, man. And we live in this society where I can order something and have food delivered within 30 minutes. Yeah. I could have my Amazon Prime show up maybe later today, tomorrow, worst case. Oh my gosh. Payphones are not, I mean, I remember using payphones. I remember a typewriter is how I learned how to type,
I don't.
Yeah. So it's, I'm not saying we need to go back to that, but like when you've had that experience, again, going back to experience of knowing how hard it used to be to have to type. Could you imagine having to type a perfect document? And if you make a mistake, you got to go back, start over. Some of them, the really cool typewriters had like whiteout you could put in there, and then you had to wait for it to dry. But that's like stuff we take for granted. It's like, oh, just backspace, delete, no big deal. Oh, copy and paste.
Or going to the library to find an answer to something versus going on Google. I mean,
that's called the Dewey Decimal System for those out there who might not be familiar with it, but absolutely. Oh yeah. So everything's gotten so much easier, which is good. I mean, a lot of good has come out of that, but what that can do for us as a society too is make us weak. Because, if this stuff goes away,
what happens? What do you do?
What happens? You can't look up on YouTube how to do something, or you're using, man, I remember having to go to mapquest.com, printing out
I
directions
did
of
that.
places I was going to go call on as a young sales rep back in 2003. Not only how to get there, but how to get home.
Ugh.
It's like, so, you know, try not using this next time you're on the road and figuring your way out. It's different, but those are good life skills, man. Those are good life skills
I love
to
that.
know how to do.
This has been awesome. I want to be aware of the time and everything. So where can people find the School of Grit? Where can people find you?
Yeah, man, check me out at schoolofgrit.org. So it's .org, not .com. I do not own the domain on .com. So someone else owns it. I'm not going to pay for it, at least not right now, because it's super expensive. But just go to schoolofgrit.org. You'll find all my information there. The book. I also have a membership tribe you can check out there. Just click on join the tribe. You'll find out everything you need to know about it. If it makes sense, then we'll hop on a call and we'll talk about it. And it's a selection process to get in. I don't just let anyone in because, you know, we're hard chargers, but, you know, we are like-minded people, and we're there to lift others up in service of others. So I'm just trying to create an awesome team.
Awesome. And that will be in the show notes. So you can just click on that and give it a look. I highly recommend it if you like the conversation. Just give it a look. No harm, no foul. Give it a look.
Yeah, man.
So before we wrap it up here, any final thoughts you want to leave the audience with?
Just do hard things, man. That's what I would say. Like, what's the hardest thing you've done today? And if you're like, oh, I haven't done anything hard, cool. Why don't you stop listening to this and like go run 2 miles or something you think's hard. Go do some push-ups, go do some air squats, go, I don't know, hop in a cold shower, whatever. It's up to you. That's the beautiful part. Like, what's hard for you might not be hard for me, and vice versa. So do something hard. Do something that's kind of going to suck, and do it over and over again. It's going to become easier. It's going to give you a good story to tell, and it's going to harden your mind. So get after it, in the words of Jocko there, right? Get after it.
Oh, absolutely.
That was my Jocko voice.
Get after it. I love it. Well, Brad, I appreciate the time, appreciate being on the show and all the wisdom that you just gave us. And I'm sure people will listen to this episode multiple times to make sure they kind of get a good feel of all the acronyms and everything like that. So love it, appreciate it. And it was great having you on the show.
Right on, brother. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.